And moving on to our next speaker, who is based on another continent, actually in United States, in New Hampshire, to be more exact. Rod Griffith have a really exciting experience. He have a 30-year background in marketing and have worked with partner marketing for many, many years for tech companies as a strategic alliance partner manager before becoming also working on the agency side. And he's a co-founder of MarketReach, a B2B tech marketing firm. And they are helping tech companies to execute partner marketing initiatives and programs in the US. So exciting to have you with us here today, Rod.
Thank you, Jacob. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to your content.
I hope it at least meets expectations for you.
It will. I'm sure it will. So take it away, Rod.
Thank you very much, Jacob. I really appreciate it. Well, as Jacob mentioned, I spent 10 years in channels and partner alliance marketing in the computer industry before starting MarketReach back in 1994. And subsequently, probably 60% of everything we've done as a company over the past 28 years has all been partner marketing. So we literally have thousands of partner marketing programs, experiences under our belt. So it gives us an interesting perspective on where things work and don't work. And certainly we want to share with you some of the pitfalls that we see happening in partner marketing. And these are pitfalls that are very specific to partner marketing, because when we talk to a lot of marketing people and partner marketing leaders, I'm sure you've seen these, they'll typically tell you that, well, what thwarts us tends to be lack of shared vision, unclear goals, lack of commitment, lack of resources. This list you see here. And these are very common and they're very important factors that you need to focus on. But when you really look at it, there's nothing here that's specific to partner marketing, right? These are not issues that are prone only to partner marketing. They're generally marketing issues for any marketer. In fact, you can say they're issues for engineering teams and construction teams and all sorts of industries. So what we're going to focus on are some of the lesser known pitfalls, but yet still critical pitfalls that happen specific to partner marketing. I think you'll hopefully find at least one or two of them interesting and something to think about. To get started, let me just sort of define a business partnership in a broad level and say, okay, two or more companies working together towards a common goal are business partners. I ask this all the time at conferences, and people raise their hand and say, yeah, that generally seems to be okay. And then I'll basically proceed to tell them that they are wrong. It's a bit of perhaps a trick question, but in reality, when you really think about it, two or more companies working together towards a common goal are actually competitors, right? If you're targeting the same audience with the same products, going after the same money with the same solutions, you're competitors. You're not actually business partners. And it might be semantics, but it makes a point, and it makes a point about our first pitfall, which is that you should never assume that you share the same goals. You don't. You just plain don't. Two companies that are business partners are two or more companies that are working together towards separate but aligned goals. And it seems very simple. It seems like common sense, but people lose sight of this all the time. It's very important that you never stop understanding and acknowledging each other's true goals, aligning your plans to show how each partner is going to reach their goals, not a common goal, but each partner is going to reach their individual goals, and then have metrics that ensure that you're tracking the success of each partner towards those goals. Again, this seems like a really simple one, but I can tell you I couldn't even count how many times we've seen challenges come up because people have forgotten to really plan for both companies' individual sets of goals. And we put together a quick little checklist. When it comes to goals for alliances and partnerships, these are pretty much where 99% of most partnerships are going to fit into. And it falls into three impact areas, right? You go into a partnership because you want to impact your offering, right? If it's a partnership where you're doing code development, for example, or you're tying your products together somehow, or you're improving the features to align with their features, for example, you're strengthening the product, you're strengthening your competitiveness, and you might be enhancing your customer lock-in, for example. We have partners that work together to make their products work better together so they can actually cooperatively sell to their own customer bases, for example. On the marketing side, on the left, the most common goals you're going to want to look at are increasing market share and penetration, entering a new market. You might want to go into a partnership because your partner has strong presence in an industry or a geography that you want to get into. Certainly, channels partners are often used to get into geographies, for example. You might be trying to boost differentiation and competitiveness or strengthen brand awareness. Similarly, if your partner has strong awareness in a particular industry that you want to penetrate, tying yourself through a partnership to that partner can really accelerate the brand awareness for you in that industry. So you certainly see that when you work with large companies with strong brand presence, for example. And on the selling side, we've really, over the years, it's really comes down to there's only 3 reasons to be working on joint selling together. And everything should match at least one of these 3 goals. Either you want to increase sales opportunities, you want to accelerate current sales opportunities, right? Accelerate the sales cycle, or you want to lower the cost of sales by making it easier to sell. If you're not doing joint selling efforts that target one of these 3 goals, you're probably not doing something that's worth doing. So the next critical pitfall we see is not knowing where or if your customer journeys are aligned. You may have great synergy in terms of your target market base. You might be targeting the same organizations, the same environments, the same needs, the same people individually, but you might find that your customer journeys are not on the same cycle. I discovered this years ago when I was working as an alliance manager for a major computer company, trying to do partnerships with major software companies. And we had great synergy. We sold to the same people. We were targeting the same exact environments, but we found out that in many cases, depending on the environment, the customer was purchasing the software, making a decision on the software weeks or even months before they decided what hardware platform to run it on. So we were out of sync on the journey there. Doesn't mean you can't work together. What it means is you have to actually analyze and figure out which journey segments you most need to focus on as an organization. Your company might be more focused on the awareness and informed stages of the journey, right? Where you're trying to generate leads and prospects for the front end of your sales pipeline. Whereas your partner might be more focused on, they already have plenty of opportunities, plenty of leads, prospects at least. What they're trying to do is move people from the consideration stage to the evaluation stage to spend more time and actually put the energy into assessing your products and evaluating your products. So each of you have different focuses. So the goal is to figure out, well, how can we help accelerate each other's journeys along the way? What can we do to help accelerate each other's customer journeys? Because everything you do is in partner marketing should help in some way accelerate the customer journey. The next pitfall is lack of buy-in or ownership by the sales organization. Many of you are probably involved with partnerships. Many partnerships are formed in this way. 2 executives meet on a golf course, or 2 executives meet at a conference, and they decide, wow, we have some synergy, we should work together. And so the relationships are born out of the corporate offices. They're born out of maybe perhaps the partner marketing organizations or the marketing teams or the product management teams, for example. But they're born in the corporate office and they're built there and designed and planned there. And then they kind of hoist it over the wall to the sales organization and say, here's a new partner we want you to work with. And that can lead to real challenges. You need to look at things like creating joint field planning workshops, for example, to foster local sales relationships. You may have tremendous relationships between the 2 corporate offices, but if your local field people don't even know each other, don't trust each other, don't understand each other, you're going to have real challenges when it comes to generating any real cooperative revenue together. You also need to look at things like what we call sales playbooks. Okay, how do we define exactly where our field should work together? Who do they target together? How do we go after them? What are the qualifications? What are the sales tools we're going to use? What are the call to actions we're going to follow up with? You need to define those in advance and build a sales playbook that both companies agree to implement. And then finally, it's still important to have that corporate relationship where the 2 sales VPs have some kind of working relationship, and perhaps every 6 months they have a call to review status of things, because there's always going to be issues that have to be addressed at their levels, basically. The next pitfall we see is a lack of realistic agreed upon plan for the management of sales leads. Boy, things can get really messy. In fact, I think this came up when Linda at Crayon was talking about the question came up about sales leads and cooperative. How do we share sales leads? You really need to clearly define who owns the lead generation effort. Who owns it? Are you targeting a mutually desirable audience? You might be targeting identical people, but maybe one of you wants to focus on companies that have 1,000 plus employees. The other one is willing to target 100 plus employees. Well, you need to understand what you're trying to target together and where you overlap and focus. What constitutes a qualified lead? Because what's qualified for lead for your partner might not be as qualified a lead for you. You need to identify what both company needs to know and what data they need to collect to qualify a lead, and make sure there's a dual lead qualification process occurring, for example. And then who qualifies the leads and when do they bring the other partner in? That needs to be predefined. Who builds and owns the prospect database? I've seen finger pointing and challenges and people fighting over the prospect database, and it does not help a relationship. But it's critical that you identify and understand that, because nowadays, especially, there's legal ramifications over privacy and things like that. You need to understand, well, what are we allowed to share and when can we share it, for example? And do we have proper opt-in relationships with the prospects to do that, for example? And then finally, how are you going to avoid confusion, customer confusion, and sales conflict throughout the lead follow-up and tracking process? The worst thing that can happen, and I've seen this happen, where a partner calls on a major prospect on one day, and then 2 days later, your salesperson calls on the same prospect with absolutely no knowledge that the partner was just there 2 days ago. And now you've got this disconnect. You look out of sync, and it does not help the confidence of your prospect when they see that these two companies are supposed to be partners are completely disconnected when it comes to those sales calling efforts. So that's a critical element. The next pitfall is an imbalance in partnership investments. Now, this is very typical when one of your partners is much larger than the other. Obviously, there's only a limited amount of money, time, and resources that each can place into the relationship. And sometimes the bigger companies are able to invest a lot more into the relationship than you might be able to, or vice versa, for example. But we found that what doesn't really matter is the direct amount that each invests. What matters is the amount in commensurate with the return opportunity. In other words, how much are they putting in terms of the opportunity they're going to get out of it, basically. Because in many cases, one company is willing to make a bigger investment because they have more to gain from it. So a simple little litmus test you can use as a question is to simply ask, if this partnership fails, will both partners feel the similar pain? Are they both going to feel a similar pain? If the answer is no, if one partner has virtually no downside, you're going to have a problem, because they're going to agree to participate because there's no skin in the game for them. If they get something out of it, great. If they don't, no big deal, because they have no loss downside, for example. So it's really important that you assess these relationships and identify, okay, who really has the skin in the game and who really has something to gain and something to lose if this doesn't go well. Important question to ask. And a couple little simple tools you can use to kind of assess your partnership is to look at what we call the relationship continuum, the partnership relationship continuum. They're on the far left end of the scale. You might have a very transactional relationships. These are going to be partners that you agree to get to know each other a little bit, but you don't really have any kind of formal outbound proactive effort to go work together. It's really more transactional. If an opportunity comes up, you'll agree to work together, but you're kind of waiting for a customer opportunity. And there's nothing wrong with those relationships as long as you're both on the same page. On the other end of the scale, you have relationships where both companies are going to succeed or fail together if that relationship works or doesn't work. And in reality, most partnerships, that might be like a joint development. That's a very strategic partnership at that level. So most partnership relationships in partner marketing generally fall somewhere in between those two ends of the scale. What matters is not necessarily where they fall, but making sure that you actually identify together where it falls today and where you need it to be in 2 or 3 years, and make sure that you and your partner agree on that, because if you have different plans of where you think the relationship can go, that can become a challenge, and you want to identify that early on. So this is just a simple tool that we use to open up an engagement and a conversation with a partner to be able to make sure you're on the same page together. And again, this can avoid a lot of future issues if you do that. Another simple tool is to map out and make a list of all the value that you're getting out of those relationships, all the value that both companies are getting out of the relationship. And you can pull it right off that sort of checklist that I provided earlier, for example, all the ones that are relevant, and then map them on this simple grid that says, okay, what's the perceived value and how high is the perceived value to my partner and how high is the value to us, and to map those things out. And by doing that little exercise together, you begin to really become apparent, because it's graphical, right? So you get this graphical representation of where the relationship has an imbalance. So you begin to address them and say, hey, you know what? This is not a balanced relationship. We need to find out what it is that we can do to improve the situation. And again, these are the kind of things to do in advance of finding out on the other end when you're failing in the implementation of your partner marketing programs. This is a pre-planning effort that you need to do. Simple little tool to do that, basically. The next pitfall is the inability to measure the return on partner marketing investments. In the world of partner marketing, I can promise you, it's been 30 plus years easily, and partner metrics and metrics of the relationship are extremely challenging. It's easier, obviously, with a channels partner. With a channels partner, you have a metric, you have access because it's a financial transaction involved. You can track sales, for example. But with strategic alliances and partnerships that are based upon a cooperative marketing or co-selling or even a co-development effort, it may not have that ability to track that easily. So you have to ask yourself, are we tracking the partner source leads separately? Do we truly know what leads we're getting as a company separate from the leads our own team, our own sales force is coming up with, our own marketing efforts are coming up with? And that might be easy to do in some cases, but I can tell you in many larger companies especially, they have such a specific process for how they manage leads through the lead management process and how those leads are processed to their sales organization and qualified, that the partner source leads get thrown into the corporate lead system and then get lost. They can't be tracked. They literally, in some cases, I won't mention names, but they don't even have the ability to code a lead as a partner source lead. So you need to look at those kind of things because that become an issue. Are you identifying incremental revenue from partner-led opportunities versus revenue that might come from accelerating known sales opportunities? Both are good. I mean, they're both good things, right? A partner that helps you accelerate and close sales is a good partner to have, but it's not the same as a partner that actually brings in incremental revenue from leads that you wouldn't have had a real opportunity with or may not even known about, for example. So you need to track both of those elements. Then you got to validate the metrics with your sales team. Make sure does this make sense? And this is probably a dirty little secret of partner marketing, which is that, and I've seen this happen too many times, unfortunately. When you're relying on partner provided metrics, when your partner's telling you, here's where we believe we help you leverage business, there is an incentive, and I'm not going to say it happens to everybody or even all the time, but there is an incentive to sometimes puff up their numbers because they want to appear strategic to you. They want to appear of high value to you, and they want to make sure they continue to get the resources and attention they've been getting from your co-marketing efforts, right? So there can be a tendency to puff up the value that they bring. You need to have a process to be able to validate those metrics because they could give you wrong information, basically. So a little warning there. The next one is relying too much on anecdotal proofs of value. This is a common issue with us marketers, right? As marketing people, we love success stories. We love anecdotes. We love to go back and tell our management team a great story about how the two companies work together to overcome a competitive situation and win business. It's wonderful to have those stories. But when you're relying too much of your actual measurement of the value of the relationship is relying on anecdotal proof of value, you could be masking what the actual real value is of the relationship. So just be aware of that. And the next thing is are you using partner participation as a key metric? This is a real issue, especially with large companies that have formal partner programs. A partner program that might have multiple partners, or it might be a tiered program with gold, silver, platinum partners, et cetera. What happens is that they'll put on a partner initiative, let's say a cross-training program or a training program for field salespeople, and they'll invite their partners to participate in this training workshops. And they get to go back to the management after the program's over and say, well, it was a huge success because we had 97% of our partners agreed to participate in the program. So we declare it a success. In reality, and as an independent company that's involved with these two partners all the time, we hear it pretty regularly. The partners often are only involved because they don't see real high value in being there or participating, but they feel like they need to do it to maintain a good relationship. And because there's other things they want and need from you, they want to make sure it continues. So they participate not because they expect a high value or high return from the program, because they feel like it's the right thing to do for the relationship. Meanwhile, your partner marketing people are walking away thinking, wow, we had this wonderful, successful event. Let's keep doing this every year. And it may not be the case. So that's something to watch out for, because when you're an independent company like ourselves working with two partners to work together, we tend to kind of hear things that might not be heard between each other. So it's an interesting perspective to get, as you can imagine. And the next and final pitfall is what I call partner myopia. And partner myopia is a term I created, at least 20 years ago. But I began to realize that sometimes a partner manager, a strategic alliance manager, a relationship manager, when their advocacy for their partner begins to actually cause them to work against your own company strategies and goals. And it's an interesting phenomenon. It happens more often than you might know. And part of it is especially in organizations where you may have multiple partner managers that are working together, working sort of in competition, really, to for getting attention and resources from your internal organizations. As a partner manager, when I was a partner manager for many years, my job was to get as much visibility from my partner within my own company. So I was constantly getting in front of the product management teams, the Marcom teams, the event people, the sales organizations, anywhere that I saw marketing niches that I thought my partner could get some value out of. And it's very easy to do that without really thinking about the clear prioritization process that your company has for why a partner may or may not be qualified to participate or may not be the best partners to have participate. That comes down to the second bullet here, excuse me, which is if the success metrics for your partner managers aren't directly tied to the organization's overall goals, if their metrics are so specific to achieving these 7 critical tasks over the next quarter, for example, they may not be aware or be thinking about their overall corporate goals, and they might be working against those goals behind your back even. And we've seen this happen quite often, actually. Especially, my third bullet here is when the partner or alliance manager has been assigned to one partner for too long. That could be a good thing. But when one person's been assigned to one partner for a long time, for years in particular, they become very entrenched with that partner, right? They get to know them really well. They become friends with that company. They understand that they're really entrenched in the company's culture. They may even have an office at that company, for example. And what begins to happen over time is they start to basically lose sight of which company is paying their checks every week and signing their checks every week. And they begin to campaign against corporate goals. I have seen alliance managers, for example, be told, no, your partner is not the partner we want to have involved with this particular program. You're the partner that we want to be involved with other things, but this is not a program for your partner. And they'll still work against that and work around the back and go try to manipulate the situation to get their partner involved in those initiatives that they were told wasn't qualified for. It happens, and it happens fairly often. Again, when a partner manager has become far too closely tied to that one company for too many years, for example. So something to think about, just to be aware of, keep an eye out for. And a simple solution, obviously, is after a certain amount of time, it does make sense every once in a while to maybe sort of mix up the mixture and assign a partner alliance manager to new partners to work with, and not letting them get too entrenched with any one partner, for example. So those are the 7 pitfalls. Just 7. There's many more we could go through if we had more time. But those are just 7 common pitfalls. As you can see, they're all very specific to partner marketing that can happen. Before I go into questions, I'll mention one bit more of advice here, which is that we talked about earlier the issue of an imbalanced relationship in terms of investment. And sometimes when you're the smaller of the companies, you always feel like, gosh, I wish we could invest more, but we don't. We don't have the resources to do that. And my advice is don't underestimate the value of your proactive support enthusiasm for your partner's marketing initiatives. That could be of high value, can help balance the scales. Companies, especially companies that have formal partner marketing programs in place for multiple partners, they are going to give a lot more attention to those partners that are proactively and aggressively seeking participation and looking for ways to get involved. And that can really, really help tip the scale in terms of balanced relationships. So I wanted to bring that up. So all right, so I think it's my time to stop right now and take some questions. I will point out that I have written this entire presentation as an article. You can go to our website, mreach.com, and go to the blog page and download it. There's plenty of other articles to look at there. So,
oh, that's great to know. I thought I was, didn't get all things you wrote, talked to you about here down in my notes. So that's great that you have an article. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing those things, Rod. Really interesting and really interesting. And let's go to questions, Emma.
Yes. So one question that we have for you, Rod, is from Stephanie. She wonders if one partner would experience rough times on the markets, how big effect can it have on the other partner?
Very good question. If the rough times are simply something out of their control because of changes in the market conditions or the competitiveness of the product is not quite up there, things they need to work on, sometimes there is reasons to back away a little bit from the co-marketing efforts, certainly in the co-branding, for example. That's especially true if their market situation is something they've really caused, if they've really made some big technical mistakes in the design of their products, for example, if it's really lost competitiveness. You don't want to necessarily tie yourself branding-wise to that company's name. But in most cases, when this starts to happen, as long as partners are honest and upfront with each other, there's things that one partner can do to help the other and to help sort of reduce the impact of that negative situation by maintaining a relationship. But partnerships in general should always be flexible over time. I have been involved with some companies and partnerships that have had partnerships for over 20 years together. And those partnerships go through fluctuations, and those are natural. There's times when one partner has to back off a little bit and kind of slows down and doesn't pump as much energy into the relationship. And other times when they have a new product coming up, or they're changing, completely evolving their products, and they really need to leverage their relationship. So there needs to be an acceptance and understanding of each other's need to be able to accelerate and decelerate those relationships. What it comes down to is communications. Trust and communications is really critical. That's a great question.
Yeah. And a great answer as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I think that was all the questions that we had time for, unfortunately. But
okay,
thank you so much for a great presentation. It was really interesting to hear about all the pitfalls.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe you can stick around in the chat if somebody wants to ask more questions there.
Sure.
And thank you so much, Rod. That was great. I hope we'll continue the dialogue in the future here, and have a great day.
You too. Thanks, everybody.